Good evening, everybody.
Kabbalah Taraf, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank you. Okay. Okay, so we're going to Gimel. It says here in the Bet Yosef like this. Oh, this is also from the tour. So let's look at the tour. For some reason, I don't see it. So we'll read it in the Bet Yosef and we'll come back to that. So it says like this. Um, Katab Bahag, right? It says in the Bahag, Chitim Shebao B'Sfina. If you have a wheat that came in on a boat, Im Lachoten. So it says if they're moist. Okay. So this is Zion also. It's probably so towards the end of the chapter. So let me see if I can catch it one more time. I don't see it, but we'll take care of it. So it says, as we said, right, that we're talking about wheat that came on a boat. So it says, Katab b'tshuvot the Ramban. It says right in the Tshuva of the Ramban, he says, Bet Yosef, Israel sheyesh lo borot meleim chitim. So if you have a Jew, right, and he has some excavations, right, pits that are full of wheat, ובקרקעית הבור ובקירותיו, and on the bottom of the pit, right, or the walls of the pit, יש מן החיטה שנתבקעה מלחות הבור. So there is some wheat there that got cracked. Why is that? Because there's moisture coming out of the walls of the pit. So what do you do? Pesach, right? Passover, bebitul be'al masagi. So it says on Passover. 1 second. Yeah. So it says on Passover, it'll be enough just to nullification. So it says this resembles the case of making a storehouse before 30 days. He doesn't want to empty it out right on Passover. So it says here it's even more lenient because it's not really known that there's wheat there that got cracked. And maybe it's not there at all. In other words, there's nothing there. So it says even if it got cracked, maybe it's already not even edible for a dog. So therefore it's a double doubt, he says. But as if it was clear that there was wheat there, which are cracked, natir, ota, bitul. So then we could also allow that because of nullification. So it says it's possible that also we will have to destroy it. So he says, but you can allow this because of the claim that we just said. Because there's no real known chametz here. There's no grounds, to know for sure that there's chametz there. Maybe it wasn't even there on Passover. And then they got cracked afterwards. So it says, and not only that, but it says, really, it's more probable that there is no chametz here. Just moisture, whatever. They've said it's just rotting, basically. It's rotten. So it says you can learn from the rabbis that preceded us. So we never heard that anybody should have this custom to clear out storehouses of wheat and barley, and to clear out pits on Passover. So it says why? Because that wheat you have on the bottom is basically right. It's rotten. It's not really chametz. So it says if the Jew wants to sell this wheat, which is already rotten, that you're going to find in the pit to a goy, boro, and he rents him his pit, mutar, it's allowed. And even if it comes out to be that it's chametz there, the Tanya, it says in the Braita, goy shenichnas, a goy that came in, yiched lo bait, if he designated a house for it, eno zakuk levayer, you don't have to destroy it. Okay, so what can I know? All right, so that's the Bet Yosef. So let's see Shulchan Aruch and see, the advantage here is that when you see the Shulchan Aruch, you're going to see pretty much what in the Torah. Usually it's a similar language. So it says here like this, right? Chitim shebao b'sfina. Wheat that came, in a boat. Imhem yeveshot v'kashot. If it's dry and hard, right? V'lo nishtana marita merehen. And it didn't change, right? The appearance didn't change. So basically, it's intact. The wheat, visually and physically. Achazuke isura lama chazikinan. So he says, therefore, what we say here is that we don't assume that there's something forbidden there. By the way, this is a general rule in halakha. The general rule is that if we don't see anything which is forbidden, we don't assume that it's there. This is a big rule in halakha, So don't say, well, maybe something was there. Did you see anything there? No, if you didn't, so there's no reason to assume that there's something was there. So this is exactly what he's saying over here. You see, right, that it came on the boat, right? The wheat, the grains, whatever, and it's all intact and nice and dry. So there's no reason to assume, maybe it got wet, and then it dried out. No reason to assume that. There's no grounds. So therefore it's allowed. That's pretty much what he's saying over here. So yeah, that's the Shulchan Aruch. But regarding what the Bet Yosef said here, this was not really the same thing in the Bet Yosef. It was something new, something different there. So maybe it's a good idea to just skim over it, one more time to see what it really was saying there. So he brings this tshuva from the Ramban, right, which is the Rashba. There are some tshuvot that were written by the Rashba, but they're attributed to the Ramban. In other words, the Ramban was the author, but the Rashba, right, just basically, published it in his book. So it's a Rashba book, but it's a Ramban tshuva. That's basically what it is, right? Okay, so just to repeat, right? What did we just see in the Bet Yosef? The Shulchan Aruch is clear, more or less, right? I hope it's clear to you. If not, you have any questions, let me know. But here, right, the Bet Yosef is saying again, right, to repeat what we just said, that you have a pit, right, with grains inside, and it's like basically storage. This guy's not going to use this for Passover. That's not his intention. He just wants to hold on to it, and have a storehouse. So the question is, right, that there is some wheat there, right, close to the surface of the pit, which seems to be cracked, though. So there's an issue of right, chametz there, right, leavening. So comes this tshuva, right? It says, right, the Ramban, whatever, right, that it's okay. What does that mean? It's okay. Didn't we just say right yesterday that it's not okay? What does that mean? Right? We said that on Passover it doesn't get nullified, right? There's no nullification on Passover. So then, how is it okay over here? That's the question, right? So the answer. Let's try to sum up the answer over here. Why is this okay? First of all, it seems like that here we have something a different issue here. As we said, right, he's not coming to eat this stuff. He just wants to hold on to it, right? So basically, right, it may not be edible on Passover if you find something like this, but it is keepable, right? You can keep it and just, hold on to it. And then after Passover, right, it'll be nullified and you'll be okay. Right? That's what he's trying to say. So it's not the same thing, as when you want to eat it. When you want to eat it, right, we said there's a problem there because it doesn't get nullified on Passover. So you cannot eat it. But right here, right, you don't want to eat it, just hold on to it, right, as a storehouse. So therefore, it's okay. That's one thing. What's the other reason here? So he says, right, that there's also another issue, which is that we don't really know for sure that there's chametz here. How is that? What does that mean? We don't know for sure. But didn't we just say it was cracked? Like the wheat was cracked? So says the Ramban, yeah, it could be that it's cracked, but it could be because of rotting, it's just rotten. So we don't really know, right? If it's chametz. Why would we assume that it's rotten? Because it's in a pit. I mean, it's being stored, like it's storage. So when you have food in storage, it rots. That's it's normal. So therefore, says the Ramban, right? We're not even sure if it's a chametz. So therefore, you have a double doubt here. That's what he says, right? Safek sfeka. What's a double doubt, right? What double doubt do we have? Number one, right? We don't even know if there's any chametz there. It could be just it's rotten. Number one. Number two, he says could be right that even if it is chametz, it's already spoiled. Even a dog wouldn't eat it. So either way, right? Double doubt. So that's why you're allowed to keep it, right? But as we said yesterday, the double doubt will not help you to eat that stuff on Passover. It will not help you, but it will help you to keep it. That's a different story. So that means you don't have to sell it, right, to a goy or whatever. There's no reason to do that. That's what he's trying to say. So it says Ramban even furthermore, right, that even if we knew for sure that the wheat is is chametz, you could still keep it. He says, why is that? Because it gets nullified, right? In a majority, right? We don't even need even a 60th here to nullify. So it gets nullified in majority, and therefore, right? You can keep that on. You can't eat it, but you can keep it. So even if it wasn't a double doubt, it would still get nullified. So he says also another thing is that that maybe this right this cracked wheat that we found after Passover, maybe it wasn't even there, on Passover during Passover. Maybe it got cracked down. So we're not really sure, right, if it's chametz. That's another thing. So with a combination of all these beautiful the claims, says the Ramban, we got no problem, right? Uh, you know, that's what he's saying. So he says not only that, but he says it's more probable that there is no chametz here. In other words, right, it's more like 50, more than 50%. That it's not chametz. It just rot. So because of that, all these reasons, right? Ramban says you can keep it. So he says it's very common. It's very that you have rotting. In cases like this. So it's a more plausible, right, claim. But it says the Ramban, right? Also, if you want to sell it though to a goy, you could. I mean, you want to be stringent, right? And sell it to a goy, no problem. You could do that too. So what do you do? He says, right, what you do is, you sell the bad stuff, right, to the goy. In other words, the stuff which is cracked. And the rest of it you don't have to sell. Okay, that's pretty much a story right over there regarding. So it's a little bit different than what we saw in the Shulchan Aruch. It's not really the same thing. But the Bet Yosef brought it here, so I want to spend some time on it, right, to make sure we understand what he's saying more or less. Okay, good. So, right. By the way, this kind of tshuva, we've seen the Ramban here, reminds me of my rabbi, right? Maran Rabbi Shalom. He went out of his way, to try to to bring a leniency, in these kinds of things, to find a heter, to find a way to allow it, right? He would play all kinds of things like this, these claims and doubts and double doubts and majority and nullification. He went out of his way to which is the Sephardi approach, by the way. The Sephardim are famous for that, right? For their lenient approach in halacha. So this exemplifies that approach. Right? Okay, it's a classic example here. Because if you really want to be stringent over here, you really could. You could find. You could be like very harsh with this and say, "Oh, don't you dare! Don't touch it! Don't this! Right? Don't you even imagine it! Right? Don't even think about it." You could use that approach also, but that's not the Sephardi approach. Okay, whatever. Right? That's the way it goes. So, okay, good to know. So let's go on a little bit. Right? We'll go to Dalid. Let's see where it is. Far off somewhere. Don't see it. Oh, no. Oh, no. I lost. Maybe we should try in the beginning. Probably somewhere in the beginning there. Here it is. Okay, so we're doing Dalid. So it says here, right, the Bet Yosef, Katava Rashba, right? It says the Rashba. Shalta Hashana She'avra Rabu Geshamim. So he says, right, that somebody asked him a question, which is that, the year before, right, there was a lot of rain. It was a rainy year. V'naflu ala aremot shebesadot. So it fell on, right, the grains which were in the field, ad shayu קצת שיבולים שעל הערימות מעליהם צמחים, היש לחוש בפסח משום חמץ. So he says, right, that it was really a rainy year, and the grains that were in the field got really wet. And it's so wet that it's like sprouting. The ears of grain, right, are sprouting all kinds of sprouts. So does this mean Hayesh Lachush Pesach is right? Are we concerned that that's like chametz, that stuff? Mishum chametz bechitim shel katsir zeh. So that's the question that somebody asked him, right? The Rashba. So the Rashba answers Teshuvah mistabra she'en lachush lechitim stam. Right. So it says shelota shana. So it says the Rashba, we don't really have to be concerned about this, right? She'im iyata omer ken, because if you don't say so, he says lechem lo nochal bepesach. He says because otherwise there's no end to it, right? In other words, you have to say also, right, that we're not going to eat any bread on Passover. In other words, any matzah, right? Because because there's no year where you have no rains whatsoever, right? So let's always say, right? Well, yeah, it rained, so we're not gonna eat, right? That's it. We'll go hungry. So rain always comes down on these piles of grain. That's what he says, right? So he says, right, on what basis do we allow it here? So he says we go according to the majority. Venarov machmitzin. So he says, right, that the majority does not leaven. Ve'af otan ha'aremot שראינו, שנפלו עליהם גשמים. It says even those piles, right, where we saw the rain fell on it, tolin le'akel. So he says we go lenient. Why? Shema lo nichnesu behen mayim, because maybe the water didn't get in. Ela b'shibolim ha'elyonim, only the top layer, right, got in, but it didn't go through the other layers. That's one doubt, right? Maybe the lower layers are okay. I don't know. But it says so it says this is something which you can pretty much ascertain with your eyes, right? See what's going on. Even if you're going to tell me that it did penetrate right into the other layers, maybe it didn't get leavened. We don't even know if it got leavened, right? We're not really sure. So it says because not everything which goes into water always becomes chametz, right? It's not right, a total, a complete rule, with it's not like that, right? There's a doubt there. It's not a sure thing. So he says, right, that also you can see, right, that sometimes we based the we based the dough, as we talked about yesterday, right, with water, and it doesn't get leavened, so not always, when you baste the wheat or the dough or the flour, whatever it is, right, some water gets on the surface, it doesn't always become chametz. So it says, therefore it's a double doubt. Here we go again, right? Double doubt. Ulakula, and right, we go lenient, right? So it says, it doesn't resemble the case that we saw yesterday, right? Which is that, the ship, right, drowned into the sea, right? Because there, right, you have like it's all soaking in water. It's a different story altogether. So he says, what happens is, right, that he says, when something soaks in water, it drowns in the water, it stays there, for a while. So therefore, right, then we have to assume that it's chametz. So there's also a lot of water there. So here again, right, we see the Sephardi approach to halacha, right? Always try to go lenient, right? Double doubt. Right? Here also you could have been stringent, right? Very easily, if you really wanted to, right? But that's not the way to do things, in halacha. You have to try to find the leniency, because after all, that's what you're there for. You're a rabbi. What are rabbis for? Just to collect the money, to collect donations. You have to do your job. You have to get to the truth, right? So here also same thing, right? That's the idea. Okay, so let's see the Shulchan Aruch here. So, but just I want to point out one thing here, right, which is important to understand, which is that when we're talking about grain in the field, are we talking about grain which is attached to the ground or detached? Anybody know?
You mean the ones that split open?
So the Rashba here was talking about a case where there's grain in the field, piled up, you know what I mean? And it's, got rained on.
If they're attached, they won't split.
Right, exactly. That's the whole thing, right? That's what I wanted to hear, right? And if it's attached, there's no problem. You know what I mean? So right? You must say we're talking about grain which was already harvested, right? And it's just piled up, and then the rains came on top of it, right? So you may think, oh my God, oh Lord, right? Oh Lord, it's all forbidden, right? Forget about it. Comes the Rashba and tells you, no, don't go, don't, not so fast, buddy. Right? There's a double doubt over here. What do you want to do now? Right? Forbid the whole grain there, right? The whole pile. That's what we're saying. Okay, so yeah. By the way, I can tell you, I just recall, like always, I tell people, not always, but a lot of times that we used to go to the house of Maran, my rabbi, Allah Shalom, Maran Ovadia. He would give us advice, about paskining halacha, how to do it, that was the job that we were learning. So the thing he would always tell us is, try to be as lenient as possible, with don't be stringent on the people because they don't like that. People don't like when you just, like, oh yeah, everything is forbidden. You have to try to find a leniency, right? Which is, based on halakha, of course, right? Not some fake leniency, like some people do, right? Not like that, but to try to find leniency, try to find some kind of a route to allow. So, this is what the Rashba just did here, right? Exactly what we see. Some people today, by the way, are afraid, to do double doubts, sfek. They say, we can't do that today. We don't know how to do that, right? It's a lost art, so we can't do it. If you say like that, everything will be forbidden. You know what I mean? So you have to try, to a little bit to make an effort to right to come in and be lenient a little bit on the people. Okay, so let's see Shulchan Aruch. So going to Daled. So it says here, Shana sherabu geshamim ve'ardu al aremot shebesadot. So he says, right, that again we have a year which was very abundant in rain, right, rainy season, and therefore, right, the wheat which was in the field got really, wet from the rain, piles of grain. עד שהיו קצת מהשיבולים שעל הערימות מלאים צמחים. So he says it got so, extreme, whatever. In other words, it got so strong that, they were sprouting, right? The grains were sprouting, like new sprouts, from the moisture, from the water. אין חוששים לסתם חיטים של אותה שנה. So he says, we're not really concerned about that. That's what he says, right? The Shulchan Aruch. So, right, this was the Rashba that was, as we said, right? This was the Rashba because of the double doubt. So again, right, what was the double doubt? Right? Number one is we're when it comes to the top layer, okay, but what about the inner layers, right? We're not really sure in the inner layers if the water got inside there. That's one doubt, right? Second thing is that even if it did, we're not sure if it leavened, right? As we said, not every time something gets wet, it gets leavened. But if you can come and tell me, what about what we learned yesterday, Rabbi? Right, that we said that if it drowned in the water, right, then we assume that it's leavened. That's something else. Drowning is something else, right? It's soaking there for a while. It's a lot of water also. So there we assume that it's leavened. But here, right, when it comes to rain, it's not the same thing, right? It's not soaking in water. So therefore, we don't go so far like that. Right. So that's very important to know, right? By the way, this has also other applications. This logic, right, that we're looking at here. I remember, some rabbis, that I listened to, have brought up, right, some issues regarding, like, for instance, I'll give you an example. We call it. Let's say you have a truck, right, which is, carrying the grains, right, or carrying whatever, something like that, right? So what happens is that sometimes, the rain comes down when they're removing, right, from the truck, the grains, and it gets wet a little bit. So, it's like, let's say it's flour, So according to this, right, we have a room to be lenient, in a case like that. Same thing, right, because of the double doubt. Number one, we're not sure, if it got wet, the whole thing, right? Maybe it was only the top layer that got wet. Number two, right, also because because it may not have gotten leavened, even though it got wet. So therefore, right, again, the same thing would apply there as well. Okay, very good. So let's see what else we got here. So he brings another tshuva here, right, man, from the Rashba. So he says another tshuva, כתב עוד בתשובה, דהד דאמינן בפרק כל שעה, הכי דמה כגון, says that which we said in the Gemara, Talmud, למד ג' עמוד א', that what are we talking about? דהחמיץ במחובר, בשנתבשל לגמרי, right, במחובר, ואין הצריכה כלל ליניקה. So he says, right, that if the grain was attached to the ground and it was totally ripe, right? בכל שנתייבש לגמרי מחובר כמן דמנחה בכד הדמיה מקבלת חימוץ אם ירדו עליה גשמים. Interesting. One second. Let me read this one more time. So one more time. It says like this, right? כתב עוד בתשובה. The Rashba writes a tshuva, another tshuva. So he says, right, that which we said in the Talmud, that, you know, something can actually become leavened even when it's attached sometimes. So he says that's talking about a case where it's totally like ripe, right? So then, right, and if it got totally dried out, and you know when it was attached, so it's considered to be like it's in a utensil. So in other words, the Rashba is telling you here something interesting, right? Which is that even though we have a general rule, right, that something which is attached doesn't get leavened, but he says if it's totally ripe, okay, and then it got wet. So it could be that it's you know, in a case like that, it could be that it's chametz. So let's see Shulchan Aruch how he explains this, right? Because the language here is a little bit vague. Says Shulchan Aruch, דגן שמחובר, דמתייבש לגמרי, right? If you have grain which is attached to the ground, okay, got totally dried, ואינו צריך ליניקה, so it doesn't need any more, right, to Yanika, you know what it means? It means like to get nourishment from the ground. Doesn't need that anymore. So in other words, it's already finished, you know, with nourishment from the ground. In other words, it's ready to harvest already. It's ripe, ready to go, ready to harvest. Does not need any nourishment from the ground, right? So he says that grain can become chametz if it gets wet. You know. So he says, therefore, therefore, if the rain gets on it, right, and in a case like that, it can become chametz. Case like that. So what do we learn from this, right? What's our lesson here? What lesson do we extract from this, right, Shulchan Aruch here, from this Rashba, whatever? So the lesson is like this, you know, that once the grain gets already like fully ripe, and it's ready to harvest, it's not anymore getting nourished from the ground, right? It's ready to be harvested. So in a case like that, you have to be careful that it doesn't get wet, you know? Like you should harvest it right away and put it away. Because if you let it get wet in the rain, it could become chametz. That's the thing, you know? But wait a second, right? Didn't we just say that there's a double doubt and all this, right? So what happened over here? Why don't we say double doubt over here? Anybody have an answer for that? So you know what the answer is, right? My humble
It's
opinion,
still
right?
attached to the ground, but it's detached at the stalk because you can eat wheat right off the stalk if it detaches its kernel. It's still
Right,
detached, but it's still on the plant. If you shook that thing, it would just fall out.
right. But you see my question? My question is, right, in the halakha that we learned before, we said that there's a double doubt, therefore it's allowed. Right?
Kavod,
So why don't we say that here?
Because it says that you see the harvest, you know? That you're seeing
And
it.
therefore what?
That's a fact that it will become chametz if it harvests in contact with water.
Right. So why is it different than the other case that we
You're
which was
seeing it, you know? It's
right,
not
but
a maybe. It's
the case before was that it was piled
You're
up.
not seeing comets.
This case is we're talking about it's attached to the ground still. So what's the difference? So the truth is, right here we don't have a double doubt. If you notice, right? Why is that? Because here, right, for sure it got wet. You know what I mean? In other words, over there with the pile, it wasn't for sure that it got wet because could be it was only top layer, but not the lower layers. But here, there's no layers, right? They're all attached to the ground. There's no layers here, so therefore it's all getting wet. So therefore, here you got to be more careful. That's the thing, you know. Okay. I hope I didn't shock you there with this answer. Okay, whatever. It's not so shocking. Okay. So all right, I guess we'll stop here. Bezrat Hashem. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. And we'll see you tomorrow. Laila Tov. Chazak Baruch.
Kavod, thank you so much.
God bless. All the best.